Here we are, and we are live on Facebook. Welcome, everyone, to episode number 23 of WTF Live. I am Kim from Window Works. We are located in Livingston, New Jersey. We service the New Jersey and New York area. So if you are interested in window treatments and awnings, we are happy to help you on your next project. If you're an interior designer in the area, we'd be happy to assist you. With any of your window treatment and awning needs as well.
And my name is Vita. I'm the owner of Vitalia Inc. Window Treatments and Awnings as well. We're located in the Philadelphia area. So if you're an interior designer looking for support in the window treatment area, somebody to have your back, to take responsibility for window treatments, to take that whole hassle off of your plate and put it onto ours, that is exactly what we do. So let us know if you'd like to have that VIP treatment for all the interior designers in the Philly area.
All right. So today's episode, for those of you who are just joining us live on Facebook, we are going to be discussing panels. So it is a very popular treatment to do stationary, operable, you name it. Window treatment panels is kind of a big thing right now. So they're all the rage, and I think they're here to stay for a while.
Yes,
So yeah, let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Let's get started. Without further ado, here's our first picture.
Okay, so this was a project that we did here for a client in Livingston. And as you can see, the center section of the treatment is sheer, and the ends are it's actually a Kate Spade pattern, right? So what we did here was the client had, you see the sofa in front of the window. So it's a very big picture window. She wanted the look of a stationary panel on the side, but operable shears in the middle. So if she wanted to open them up, she had the ability to do that. Now, typically, in some instances, what we would do is we would do a shear in the back and then the stationary panels in the front. But because she didn't want the sofa to go into the room too much, we opted to put the shear and the drape on the same rod and actually sew them together.
Okay.
So this way, and this is on a corded system again, because it is with the sofa in front. So when she does open them, the shears obviously will collapse first. And if she wants to bring it even further, then the panels will also collapse on the end. So this is a ripple fold style of window treatment. So there is no ring, it is a track, and the panel kind of undulates in waves. I know in Europe they call it the wave. So it's that kind of a system here.
Nice. And is this the H track?
No, this was a track from Brimar. So this was a Brimar track. They wanted something that, again, because the room and the width, they wanted something that was a little bit more substantial. So I believe this track is about 1.5 inches in diameter.
Yep. Okay. And the H track is, I think, 1 inch and an eighth.
Yeah. So again, we're splitting hairs over basically almost like 1/4 of an inch.
Hey, sometimes you have to do that.
But sometimes if you really want the look, that 1/2 inch really makes a world of difference.
Right. Nicely done. I like it. All right. So next project is from Vitalia Inc. here in Philadelphia. And you can see, actually, anybody who's familiar with University City, you can see the view from the window. It's right up there at Drexel, UPenn, that whole University City area. This was actually an apartment that we did for students up there.
Oh. Okay.
And this was done for one of our favorite designers. Her name is Michelle Plachter. Actually, she has a team of, I think, 4 people. It's Michelle Plachter Designs. And these were functional drapery panels on traverse track with a flat decorative fascia. The challenge here in this window is that it's a corner window. So you can't just measure window on one side and window on the other side and order the tracks exactly what the tape measure shows you. This we used, I believe this was either, well, you can use one of 2 methods, either the miter method or the button pass, and I believe we used the button pass here, which means that one of the tracks can be the size that you measured, but the other that size minus however much the that other track protrudes forward. So you have to make sure
Hmm.
to take that deduction and not forget about that if you want them to really kind of touch and almost kiss and really come together and not have the gap there. Another interesting thing about this project is the flat fascia. Now, we did have a whole episode on hardware and decorative hardware and the latest trends and what to use now, and I'm sure we'll have more of those.
Hmm.
And this was a track that we've actually been using quite a bit lately because it is very much on trend with the whole
Hmm.
streamlined, simple, and sleek kind of look that's really in right now. And that's exactly what it is. It's rectangular, it's flat, but it does have a track behind it. So you can have this sort of ceiling mount, very flush looking installation, yet you don't need to have rings and the draperies can move back and forth. And then other than that, what you're seeing here are pleated drapes. This is a double top tack pleat that is what we call it. It's a pleat that we've been using quite a bit. It's one of our
Hmm.
favorites, one of our go-tos. And you're also seeing a quite large band on the leading edge of the drapery panel. Of course, the leading edge is that edge that leads towards each other. That's what I call leading. And that tape, I believe, was about 3 inches or so. And it's a very popular technique by many designers to put the tape to accentuate the drape just along the leading edge. Now, you can also put it everywhere else on the drape. That's, of course, either more expensive or more, I guess, fancy, if you will. So if you just wanted to punctuate it a little bit, running it down the leading edge is pretty much all you need.
So I have a quick question here with this one. The panels that
Yeah.
are in the corner,
Mhm.
is that a stationary panel or do those panels actually move as well?
They move as well, and that's the
Okay,
second picture. Just remembered I had it
perfect.
here. So both of these are pairs. So in the
Mhm.
left corner, it's a pair. In the right corner, on the right side, on the left side, it's a pair. On the right side, it's a pair as well.
Okay. And
So
then
they're
are
both
they and then the tracks are it's obviously because it's two separate tracks, it's two separate chord systems and it's corded or baton.
so this is baton.
Okay. So
Mhm.
with the baton, you have a little bit more flexibility as to which panel you want to move. You could move one, you can move all three, all four rather. So that's the nice part about going with the baton option.
That's a really good point, Kim. Yes. All right.
Okay. So this next uh, project here, this was one that we did for a local retail client here in West Orange to us. And they have two sliding glass doors on either side of this kind of like sitting nook area. And I wanted to highlight this one to show um, that what you can do over a sliding glass door, that you can do a panel and it can be a one way, that I know a lot of times out of habit we want to do have a pair of panels and will it
Mhm.
look funny and whatnot. And so this is sometimes we kind of have to go over function over pretty, like I always say. And this is a good example of it's okay to have the one panel and it going to the one side of the door. Now, because the door on the other side, there wasn't that much wall space to the right of it, we had to
Mhm.
kind of keep it in proportion so that this way they would be even. Because obviously here we have a lot of wall space and we could have carried that panel over so you could have more of a view of the stationary part of the sliding glass door. But this is a sheer fabric. I know it's a little hard to tell in the picture where you can still kind of see out. And this was done again on a decorative traverse rod. So it doesn't have any rings.
Mhm.
Um, but it was again on a baton system, so you were able to just drag it over and have it stack on the left side.
Nicely done. It's interesting that question of, oh, will it look funny? That's a question
Yeah,
we get asked a lot. And,
yeah.
it's really hard to answer that question because it depends what's funny to you.
Yeah, it's very subjective. So I always like having these kind of photographs in my back pocket, especially when we're dealing with sliding glass doors. Because yes, in the perfect world, you would have a pair of panels on either side of the door, but sometimes it, the circumstances just don't allow it. So it is okay to have a panel that's just stacked over to the one side, and then maybe you find, I get it, with it looking off balance because there's so much weight on one side of the door. This client had artwork too, because that was
Mhm.
another thing we had to think about as well, 'cause she had artwork on the right side of the door and there wasn't that much wall space, and this painting was very important that it would to be featured, so I couldn't overshoot the door either, and even if I wanted to put a panel there, this is where this art lived. So there's a lot of things and a lot of details that when panels, it's not always as easy if, like, let's just slap up a pair of panels and call it a day. There are sometimes a lot of things that we have to think about. Artwork, these are things that we always ask. I always ask, or what are we doing next to the window? Is there any artwork going here? Any sconces? Any things? Because you don't want to be surprised when you go to install, like, hey, this is what's happening, because that's happened before too.
Many times, right? Oh, can this artwork be moved? No, it can, but later we were planning to put panels here, but you can't. But what do you mean? We are.
Yes.
So
So
important to have all of those conversations ahead of time.
absolutely.
All right. Okay, I wanted to highlight this project. This was a townhome in South Jersey, and this was a small dining room. And I just wanted to show how even in the small space, you can still
Mhm.
have panels. This is particularly a bay window. And so we just ran 4 panels in each corner of the bay, and these are very simple single width panels, which means that they dress down to about 15 inches or so. Stretched out and finished, they're about 19 to 20 inches. But when you
Mhm.
kind of squish them together and dress them down to increase the fullness, they're at about between 12 to 15 inches. So
Mhm.
oftentimes another question we get asked by our designers is, will the panel look skimpy? And so again, this is a very subjective question. What looks
Mhm.
skimpy to you may look not so skimpy to somebody else. So to your great point a little earlier, Kim, is I also try to have as many pictures in my back pocket as possible so that I can show them what a 1 width looks like, or 1.5 widths, or 2 widths in different spaces, and also maybe several panels together, or just one, or just two, so that the designer can make her own educated decision whether
Mhm.
she thinks it looks skimpy or not. So
Right.
I often find that in this design world, we throw out throw around terms that are very objective, subjective, not objective, subjective, meaning that they're based on your own opinion and your own view of things. So just because something is skimpy to you, it may not be to me, or something that I actually, to go on a little bit of a tangent, a while ago I was participating in some sort of team building activity or something, I can't remember now, and the moderators were making this very point, and the way they made that point is by using the words often, sometimes, rarely, seldom, all the time, or something like that. So
Yeah.
and all of these points meant, and they gave the definitions: is seldom 1 or 2 times, is often 3 or 4 times, or 5 to 6, 10 to 5, and it all meant differently
Mhm.
to different people. And so the whole idea here is to illustrate that all of these subjective terms that are often thrown around at the appointments that we go to, and we are being asked to make recommendations and decisions based on those. And I think that's a very dangerous game to play.
Yeah.
So again, to bring it full circle, Kim, to what you said earlier: pictures, 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 visuals, visuals, visuals. The more
Yeah.
visuals you can have in your back pocket, the better off you as a worker will be, or as a window treatment specialist. And ultimately, it's a better service that you'll be providing to the designer. And ultimately, the decision will be best that the designer can make, either on the spot or ultimately in the project. So.
Yeah. And I think you brought up a good point there too, Vita, about what you want the panel to be dressed down to. Because to have a panel that's made that's only about 12 inches wide, so to speak, on when it's completely, I guess, drawn open, you're only getting what, like 3 pleats on something that's 12 inches wide. There's not a lot of space to put up to for a lot to happen there. So if your goal is, because I know a lot of times in these kind of bay window situations, we don't have a lot of room, but
Mhm.
you also want it to look custom. So a
Yeah.
lot of times if we make it at 18, 19, 20 inches, we can always, I use the term scooch. I said, Billy can always scooch it down depending on what rings we use, and that's a whole other thing, but we could always dress it down
Yep.
to, the 12 inches in order to really fit the space. But you don't want it, you want it to look custom and intentional.
Hallelujah to that.
Okay, this
Custom and
is a
intentional. Here we come.
yeah, so this is a project we did for Joan Stapleman. She is of Roseland Properties. This was a model home project. So for this, because we had the doors that opened out into, this was done in Morristown. So if you're familiar with this area, they call the center of Morristown the Green. So it opens out to the green, these beautiful French doors. This is at 40 Park. And because with model homes, again, there is the word, the B word, the budget that we have to fit into. We weren't, we couldn't do any kind of drapery hardware, but I thought this was really interesting to
Mm,
showcase where if you don't want to do drapery hardware, because I know sometimes, a lot of times clients aren't really a fan of the hardware for some reason, but you can do panels that are board mounted. And these were shirred panels that, again, the panels were made, and Billy on site just stapled them on and really made them and pleated them and to the designer's liking, which was great because we were able to decide how wide we wanted to make them on site, so that this way, depending on the doors, because a lot of times when we're going to these places, it's in construction. So
mhm.
that's another way where we were able to kind of make it work on the install. And I believe this was about 2 widths for each panel here,
Wow,
give or
that's
take. This
really
was,
brave to do all of that on site.
yeah, we've had to do it before. We have one picture. I'll have to find it and I'll showcase it again. Where uh the um the panels were like a sheer like cargo mesh, and that
Hmm.
we basically just cut the fabric right then and there, Billy and I. And
Dang.
yeah, yeah, it
Like
was
bringing the custom workroom to the project site.
yes, yeah, yeah, it was because it was one of those crazy designer fabrics that literally looked like a cargo net from a play gym. It was a beautiful fabric, but
Hmm.
you're not sewing a hem in that. You're not, without putting banding in again. So there are different ways to handle that.
Yeah, I really like this example, Kim, because it truly showcases how you can still do the vertical treatments, being the
Mhm.
panels, and not have to go into the expense of hardware, as
Right.
is also the case with model homes. Or to your point, some customers just don't like the hardware
Nope.
for whatever reason. You know, they don't like rings, they don't like rods, they don't like the breakup in the lines there, they don't like the little finials or whatever. It's just, again, everybody has their own preference, and this is all very subjective. So this is a really good example of how you can have the drapery panels, and you can have the vertical pattern and color and texture,
Absolutely.
and go directly from the ceiling. Now we would always mount it in our workroom. We would bring it already pre-mounted on the boards, and that's super super brave of you guys.
I mean,
But again,
it's
a great
rare.
example
Yeah.
of what can be done.
It is rare that we ever have to do that, but sometimes, again, when necessary, we will do it.
Yeah, nice. Okay. All right. So this is a project that we did for